Well, hello, good morning, students. Let us now come to the part 3 of your chapter development. Now, in the previous videos, we have already learned that there are certain criterias to define development. Those criterias are the average income of a person and also various other factors like healthcare facilities and also the educational attainment level, which are uh, what to say measured by your literacy rate, net attendance ratio, and infant mortality rate, etc. All right, and in doing so, we have known that when we try to compare different states of India, some states have a very high level of GDP, that is state income, but they lack in various other health facilities and educational facilities. Now, what does that mean? Uh, it means that in India there are many states, and in these different states, there is disparity. Not all states are equal, and some states might have a very high level of income, but some states might be very good in terms of social infrastructure and other facilities like health and education. Like, for example, the Haryana state of India, we have already seen that it has a high level of income. But although Kerala has lower state domestic product than Haryana, Kerala does very good in terms of literacy and healthcare. And some states like Bihar, it lags in both income level and also the healthcare and educational facilities. Now, there is something known as public goods, the public facilities. Money is not the only factor by which we can buy all the goods and services, all right, which are needed for a person to live happily. Okay, so even though if we have lots of money, if public facilities are not provided by the government, those money, those high level of income and wealth possessed by the state will not be able to buy the whole public goods. So what are public goods? Public goods, when we mention here, are the goods that are provided by government. For example, roads, bridges, railways, and many other social infrastructure. If a state has a lot of money and only a few person, only some selected few person require or need this kind of public facilities, they will not be able to buy these facilities with the money they have. Let's suppose, for example, if in a village only a couple of students or a couple of families would like their children to study and acquire education, it is not possible for that two families to build a whole institution, educational institution, and schools and colleges for their children. For that, many other students of the village or the city also need to have the aspiration and the likingness, willingness to attend education. All right. So, in such a scenario, the role of government is important. Government should come forward and build schools, colleges, institutions. All right. So in that case, public facilities are those facilities or the public goods which are made available to the public by the government with the aim of public welfare. Now, we have seen already that education and health plays major role in defining development. Keeping that in mind, a very important concept, the concept of body mass index, needs to be calculated and we need to understand it. Oh, so what is body mass index? Body mass index is the index which is calculated in order to find out the nutritional level or the well-being of children or any person. How is it calculated? It is calculated by dividing weight of a person in terms of kilogram by the square of height measured in terms of meter. So it should be meter square. All right. Weight in terms of kilogram divided by height in terms of meter square. That will give you the BMI or the body mass index. All right. So let's see here. In your book, it is given that uh, the body mass index can be calculated by using the formula, and the index that you get will give you your understanding of how well or how healthy a person is. Like, for example, of what year, what is the age of a person, and related to that age of the person, if the body mass index, let's say for example for the 14 years, if the BMI falls between 15.4 to 27.3, this is the range for the normal. If the BMI falls within this range, then the child can be said to be healthy and normal. If it is less than this range, then it is to be understood that the child is malnourished or undernourished. All right. And if it is more than 27.3, then the the child is overweight or obese. Okay. So that is the concept of body mass index, which is also a very important uh, tool or a measure to understand whether a child is healthy or malnourished or obese. Now, we have already known that uh, the criterion of measuring the development as proposed by World Bank in this is the income level. We have already seen in the previous videos about the various range or the national income measured as per the what to say, dollar. Now there is another criterion which is published by the Human Development which is published by the UNDP, which is United Nations Development Program. It is called a Human Development Report. And according to this report, apart from using the per capita income or the average income as a criterion for the development, health and education is also been uh, incorporated. We call that Human Development Index. Human Development Index, HDI, it stands for a ranking. All right. In that ranking, what actually happens is we also take into account health and education apart from per capita income in order to measure the level of development of any country or state. Now, in that context, life expectancy life expectancy is one criterion. Life expectancy at birth, it denotes, as the name suggests, average expected length of life of a person at the time of birth. So it is basically the lifespan of the general population. The life expectancy at birth right now for India stands at 68.8, according to the Human Development Report of 2018. When India just got its independence in 1947, it was well low at 36. So from that we can draw to the conclusion that life expectancy has no doubt increased by many fold compared to that figure. But is it good enough? When you do the comparative analysis here, as given in the table above, this is from the Human Development Report of 2018. We can see that India, having gross national income of 6,353, life expectancy of 68.8, mean years of schooling of people aged between 25 and above 6.4, and human development rank in the world is 130. All right, this is for the 189 countries taken together for the ranking of Human Development Index. Now, one thing you can notice here is that although Sri Lanka, which is a comparatively much smaller country, life expectancy at birth is higher than India at 75.5. And also, comparatively, it is doing relatively well also in terms of per capita income, standing at 11,326. And also, the mean years of schooling at 10.9. And human development ranking in the world is also at the 76th rank, which is plausible. Now, why is it so? It is because the level of social infrastructure like schools and healthcare facilities in Sri Lanka is better compared to India. All right. Now we can see that there are other neighbors of India like Nepal and Bangladesh who are also relatively doing considerably well with regards to life expectancy at birth. Although India is ahead of these countries in terms of per capita income. So, uh, why do we measure the per capita income? Why do we calculate it in dollars? Per capita income is calculated in dollars for all countries, so that it can be compared. It is also done in a way so that every dollar would buy the same amount of goods and services in any country. This is important. We know that dollar is the currency of United States of America. But let me bring to your notice that this very currency is used world over in order to buy goods and services of one country with the another. This is done so because every currency of every country have different values. They have a different purchasing power. All right. So it is important that we try to equalize this purchasing power, and because of that dollar has been used so that each country can do their trading, buy goods and services in terms of dollar, and in doing so there will not be any confusion regarding the amount of goods and services which is purchased by one country from another, and so forth. All right. So this is the concept of human development index. It is a very important index. Now, two prominent figures, the name of two prominent figure comes here. One is Mehboob ul Haq of Pakistan, and another one is Amartya Sen of India. These two economists are important because they have formulated the formula for the calculation of human development index. Amartya Sen is a Indian born economist, all right, and he is a Nobel laureate from India in the field of economics. Now, we know that development is a very important concept, and every country has their own set of goals and objectives for development of their country. All right. But in doing so, uh, every country has to use of certain resources, the resources which are available to them and also which are not available to them. And for uh, incurring those resources and for using up those resources, they have to exploit the natural resources and the resources which are available to other countries. They have to import those resources. Okay. So in doing so, we have observed that over over exploitation or overuse of resources has been seen many a times. Here comes the uh, concept of sustainable development. We know that development cannot be what to say for forgotten. There has to be development. That is something which cannot do away with. But sustainable development is a concept which has gained its importance in from the past few decades. In 1987, the Brundtland Report asserted sustainable development as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. What does it mean? It means that we should work for the development of our country, but that should not be at the cost of our future generations. Now let's just imagine all the resources which are available with us today, available in our country today. If we use them all at once with the objective of high rate of development, so what will happen? We will use up all the resources, and we will not consider the replenishment or the renewable resources. We should give time for replenishment of the resources. But if we keep on working towards development in such a way that these resources are depleted and not enough time is given for the replenishment of the resources, then it will be a very difficult situation. We all must know that we have not inherited the world from our forefathers. We have borrowed it from our children. This is a very important point to be noted. Now, let's take one example of how these resources are depleted. Recent evidence suggests that the groundwater is under serious threat of overuse in many parts of the country. About 300 districts have reported a water level decline of over 4 meters during the past 20 years. Nearly one third of the country is overusing their groundwater reserves. In another 25 years, 60% of the country would be doing the same if the present way of using this resource continues. Now, this is a matter of grave concern. All right, one third of the country is already overusing their groundwater reserves. An estimation for the next 25 years is more than half of the country, that is 60% of the country, would be doing the same. Okay. Groundwater overuse is particularly found in the agriculturally prosperous regions of Punjab and western Uttar Pradesh, Hard Rock Plateau, areas of central and south India, and some coastal areas, and the rapidly growing urban settlements too. All right. So groundwater, we all know, you must have seen every now here and there about the hand pumps, tube wells. All right. So this is the well, the groundwater. There is water which is flowing underground, which we don't see very often, but in order to get the water, we have to dig a pipe or the tube, and we can get the water out of it. But the thing is that during the Green Revolution period in the 1960s and 70s, lot of irrigation work was required in order to increase the productivity of food grains in our country. And because of that, agriculturally rich states like Punjab, Haryana, and western Uttar Pradesh, they have extensively used groundwater for the purpose of agriculture. And in doing so, overuse of groundwater has been seen. All right. And not only that, in the Deccan Plateau and the Southern Plateau, plateau in the southern India, you know that in the central India and the Deccan of the south, the rainfall is rather sparse. And because of that, there is obviously scarcity of water. And for people who are dwelling there, if they want the water and the rivers are dried up, what they do? They use underground water. And for that reason, the underground water has been uh, overused, depleted. Okay. Example number 2. Now let's look at this table. This is concerning the crude oil reserves. Crude oil, we all know, we are all science students. It is from the crude oil that we get various other products like petroleum, diesel, kerosene, etc. All right. So crude oil is actually the what to say the resource or the oil which are found from the underground, in its unfiltered form. It is from this crude oil that we are going to send it to the refineries and subsequently extract the various products like petroleum, diesel, etc. Okay, so the table gives an estimate of reserves of crude oil. More important, it also tells us for how many years the stock of crude oil will last if people continue to extract it at the present rate. The reserves will last for only 50 years more. This is for the world as a whole. However, different countries face different situations. Countries like India depend on importing oil from abroad because they do not have enough stocks of their own. If prices of oil increase, this becomes a burden for everyone. There are countries like USA which have low reserves and hence want to secure oil through military and economic power. So this is basically what is happening in the world today. All right, India does not have enough reserves for oil, and India has to import crude oil from other countries. For example, Iran. All right, and the Middle Eastern countries, Gulf countries we call. And I don't know whether you are aware of it or not. There is a new concept of extracting this crude oil or the petroleum products from within the rocks by using certain technology. And United States is one country which has come up with this technology. They are taking out this petroleum and crude oil from rocks. All right, we call that shale gas. uh, that is what is happening, but it is actually we are using the resources, we are extracting the resources from underneath. All right, and this poses a major concern for our future generation. Now we we know that India is a country, and it is a developing country. It has not reached up to the level of other developed countries, and it is imperative for India to carry on with this developmental process. And in doing so, we have to use resources. Without resources, there can be no development. But sustainable development goal is one goal which sets certain set of objectives, following which a country can limit its use of resources, or maybe use the resources in such a manner that we give way for our future generation also to develop for themselves. All right, so that is the concept of sustainable development. All right, students, so that is the end of the chapter. I hope you understand the concept of development now and would be able to apply it in your day-to-day understanding. All right, so thank you very much. If you have any query or if you don't understand anything, you can leave a comment or you can contact me.